big pumper in Mythic Plus and great to have in raids. Ret Paladin is blasting left and right, and with our quick and easy to pick up guide, you will do the same. Talents, openers, priorities, gear, and a lot more are packed up in here, so let's kick it off with the talent builds. Since the major rework done in 10.07, there are two major builds you go for, one for single target and one for AoE. Now within these two are also two playstyle options you can go for. The Templar Strikes one, which gives you more buttons to press and delivers a mini game with what used to be your Crusader Strike, or the Crusading Strikes variant, where your auto attacks now hit Crusader Strike, but the active ability is no longer there, giving it a tad Arms Warrior vibe, making you more mindful about your auto attacks. The latter has a slight bump to your overall performance, as you will see the majority of Reds opting for it, but hey, if you prefer to always have something to press, you can go with Templar Strikes and you'll be fine. In this guide, we will focus on Crusading Strikes builds since they are the most popular and offer that marginal better performance. Let's start with the single target spec. Here, the most obvious talent is Execution Sentence, the great big judging hammer from the sky that when casted upon one of your foes, they know the sentence will not be light. Pun almost intended. By default, Execution Sentence gives you an 8 seconds time window in which you will have to pump damage to the best of your ability, because when the hammer lands, it will deal one big hit on the target with 30% of the damage you pumped through its duration. With the Executioner's Will talent, you extend the duration with 4 more seconds, giving you a juicy burst window of 12 total seconds. Since the cooldown for Execution Sentence is 30 seconds, it pairs perfectly with Avenging Wrath, your big cooldown, that is every minute. Because of that, you can squeeze one more Execution Sentence in between your major cooldowns. Divine Arbiter is another specific single target talent. This is a stacking passive which stacks with every Holy Strike ability you use. Crusading Strikes auto attacks are also in for the count. After reaching 25 stacks, your next single target strike ability will proc a big hit of Holy Strike damage to your target and a small amount to all enemies within 6 yards. This being an easy to understand, quick to pick up guide, we'll not get into all of the details and class talents, as most of them will be addressed when talking about the opener and priority. You can copy the link from the description and import it in game. Now for the AoE, you will replace Execution Sentence with Final Reckoning. This ability has a 1-minute cooldown and you should always use it immediately after Avenging Wrath so that its damage gets buffed by 20%. This blast of heavenly energy, as the tooltip says, does a decent amount of damage to all enemies in its area of effect. Yes, all of them, since it is uncapped. But the most important thing is that for 12 seconds, all the enemies it hits take 30% more damage from all of your holy power abilities like Wake of Ashes, Blade of Justice, Consecration, Judgment, Divine Storm, Hammer of Wrath, and hey, you get it. Another defining talent for AoE is Blade of Vengeance, enabling your Blade of Justice to hit all targets around and also applying the expurgation debuff on them with the mandatory damage reduction beyond 5 targets. In line with this path, there is also Searing Light, your passive capstone talent which enables your Wake of Ashes, Consecration, and Hammer of Wrath to have a chance of calling down a big wave of light, hitting all enemies in its radius with a huge chunk of damage. The 3 abilities mentioned earlier are radiant damage because of the talent right before Searing Light called Burning Crusade. No links to Liden. The AoE build is also in the description. Feel free to copy and import it in game. Again, you will do just fine with any of these builds, and there is a lot more to get into if you're interested in min-maxing. Make sure to check out the Hammer of Wrath Discord and also Bolas' guide on Wowhead or Icy Veins. So let's learn how to pump. Red being a builder-spender type of DPS, there are a couple of important things to keep in mind when doing your rotations. Whatever you do, do not overcap your holy power. Red's damage comes from building holy power efficiently and then spending it on the appropriate spenders, so any overcapping will net you huge DPS losses. Now with the new tier set, there will be moments when you may want to intentionally overcap holy power by using Judgment to proc your 4-set bonus Echoes of Wrath, causing your Final Verdict or Divine Storms to deal damage a second time, but only at 25% of their initial damage. You'll always be in a position where you have to decide to either build or spend holy power, and the general priority is to build but not overcap. If you have nothing to press, don't just sit there and wait for holy power generators to come back or hold powerful spenders just to have them be consumed with a judgment debuff. General rule of ABC applies to red as well. ABC meaning always be casting. Now let's see how you open in a Mythic Plus environment. As the tank gathers the mobs, you start by spreading Expurgation with Blade of Justice, then Judgment to proc Echoes of Wrath. After this, pop Avenging Wrath. Then you drop Final Reckoning on the pack. Use your trinket and the DPS potion here and then consume your first batch of holy power with Divine Storm. Blade of Justice next so that you keep Expurgation active, then you go for Wake of Ashes, Judgment, another Divine Storm, follow it up with Divine Toll and Divine Storm again. From here on you keep using Blade of Justice to refresh Expurgation and Judgment to proc your tier set bonus and Divine Storm as the spender. Keep using Wake of Ashes, Divine Toll, Avenging Wrath on cooldown with Final Reckoning immediately after, and again Blade of Justice, Judgment, Divine Storm, and the beat goes on. Now a small min-max trick. When you cast Divine Toll, it not only casts Judgment on up to 5 targets, but because of Divine Resonance, it also does it every other 5 seconds for 15 seconds. And guess what? It also procs our tier set, Echoes of Wrath buff, as long as you have Expurgation active on the targets, of course. So if you track Divine Resonance with this weak aura, link is in the description, you know when the automatic Judgment procs, and so you can actually time your Judgment in between these procs for at least 3 more buffed Divine Storms, depending on how much haste you have or how well you manage your holy power generation. After the opener, a simplified snapshot of the AoE rotation is this: Avenging Wrath first, Final Reckoning with as much holy power as possible, Divine Storm, Wake of Ashes when at 2 or less holy power, Divine Toll when you have no holy power or at most 1, Blade of Justice, Judgment, Hammer of Wrath. Now, one more thing, if you're still waiting to get the full tier set, just ignore the Echoes of Wrath buff and just practice the same rotation so that when you do get your 4 set, the muscle memory is already there and all of the puzzle pieces will fall into place. Now let's talk about your single target opener and raid rotation for Amir Drasil. You will start with Blade of Justice, then Judgment to proc the tier set bonus. Next, drop your Execution Sentence, and after this, blast Avenging Wrath, followed by your trinket and your DPS potion. Then Hammer of Wrath, followed by Templar's Verdict, and then Wake of Ashes, followed by Judgment and another Templar's Verdict. Then Blade of Justice to refresh Expurgation, Divine Toll, and Templar's Verdict again. Be mindful that the same min-max trick with Divine Resonance can be done again. And from here on, the single target rotation priority is as follows. Number 1, Avenging Wrath. Number 2, Execution Sentence. Templar's Verdict next when at 5 holy power. Wake of Ashes if you have 2 holy power or less. Divine Toll, Hammer of Wrath when your target has less than 20% HP or if you have less than 3 holy power, Judgment if you have 3 or less holy power, Blade of Justice, Templar's Verdict when at 4 holy power last. So since you started to build the muscle memory for the openers and rotation priorities, let's get you properly geared. We'll cover here some of the top items you need for your ret, but there is a full BIS list already done by the Ret Overmind Bolas, and once again it's all in the description if you want to know about all of the item slots. Starting with the trinkets, we need 2 types of trinkets. For single target or raid, your BIS trinket is Cataclysmic Signet Band from Smoldron. It will net you a good amount of strength with a nice passive damage attached to it, but it will also deal some damage back to you, so beware. The next one on the list is Augury of the Primal Flame. This will drop from Farak himself, giving your abilities a low chance for annihilating flame for 20 seconds. Sounds very ominous for myself. This will have your crits deal 50% additional damage as fire split between close enemies. Very close on the list and much easier to farm is Rizan's Gleaming Eye from Atal Dazar. Passive trinket with strength on it, spawning a small dino to hit your target for physical damage and a nice bleed too. The last single target trinket on the list, Branch of the Tormented Ancient from Gnarlroot, an unused trinket spawning 4 roots that slow you but you use freedom, and then your next abilities will automatically hit these roots, dealing damage split between enemies. For Mythic Plus, your BIS will be Ashes of the Ember Soul, dropping once again from Smolderon. This is a big unused strength buff, and since it has 2 minutes cooldown, you can pair it up nicely with Avenging Wrath. Next on the list is Pip's Emerald Friendship Badge from Council of Dreams. It's a good passive trinket, providing you with some nice secondary stats depending on who from the council you end up befriending. You can also look out for the Porcelain Crab from Throne of the Tides, possibly the biggest mastery gain out of all of the trinkets, and you might think that we don't value mastery as much, but the amount given by this is just too good to pass up, especially for AoE. Honorable mentions among the trinkets are Mirror of Fractured Tomorrows from Murozond's Rise, Coiled Serpent Idol from Volcross, and Accelerating Sandglass from Fall of Galakron. In terms of crafted gear, you will prioritize the embellishments. First, let's split them up fast. For Mythic Plus, you want to craft Frostfire Legguards of Preparation paired with Vibrant Wildercloth Shawl, Primal Molten Sabatons, Primal Molten Vambraces, or Primal Molten Great Belt. Choose one depending on what low-level gear slot you want to cover. For single target and raid, you want to choose 2 Shadowflame Tempered Armor Patch gear slots from above, since you will replace Frostfire Legguards of Preparation with the tier set legs. Another very good craft is Signet of Titanic Insight that will give you your BIS stats. There is a wide section of very good weapons from Mythic Plus and Raid, but if you are really unlucky with the drop, then you can just also craft your Obsidian Seared Claymore until you get your legendary. Haha, good luck. Now let's talk about the stats, and please don't forget to sim yourself to always get the proper info on your ret. But as a healthy rule of thumb, the priority is the following: item level for all items except rings and necklaces, because strength will always be your best friend and those don't have strength. Look out for haste next, helping with lowering the GCD and making your rotation a tad more smooth. Versatility and crit are kind of the same in value, where crit will definitely push you to hit harder while versatility will help you live longer but also bump your trinket damage. Last is mastery, but this doesn't mean that having a decent amount of it will translate into you dealing less damage. Remember, mastery is a great stat when you are just starting out, and this is why as you go along and get more and more gear, always sim your top gear to have the best possible results. Once you get your hands on the legendary Firalath the Dream Render, your stats will be a lot more heavy on crit and haste, but again, just sim, goddammit, come on. Keeping in mind the stat weights discussed earlier, let's check out the Consumables. Wafting Devotion for your weapon, and also never forget to add a Howling Rune for that extra haste. Be sure to get Incandescent Essence for your headpiece, Graceful Avoidance on your cloak to add a bit to your survivability, Waking Stats on your chest for obvious reasons, a Shadow Belt clasp for your belt for more stamina, adding even more to your legendary tankiness. Bracers will be enchanted with Devotion of Avoidance, legs will have the Fierce Armor Kit for a bump in both DPS and survivability, and put Plains Runner's Breeze on your boots, giving you a slight nudge in movement. Lastly, Devotion of Haste or Devotion of Crit / Versatility for the rings depending on your sims. File of Tepid Versatility will be the best file to use regardless of the content you do, with Elemental Potion of Ultimate Power for your DPS potion of choice, of course. Always have one Fierce Limited Diamond in your gem slot, and the rest should be Energized Ephemeral. Don't forget about changing these once you get the legendary. There are a lot more details to get into when it comes to Retribution Paladin, and this guide is meant to give you a rough idea to get you going into the right direction. And once you feel you are ready, there are a lot of resources to tap into to further master the spec. The Hammer of Wrath Discord is filled with awesome people who are more than willing to help out and answer questions. And a huge thank you goes to Bolas for the unrelenting source of knowledge that he is when it comes to what makes Ret Paladin tick. He always helps us with our red guides to make sure we're not complete doorknobs, and as I mentioned in the beginnings, the description contains the guides from Bolas plus the link to the Hammer of Wrath Discord, so be sure to pay him a visit. Now that you are well on your way with Ret Paladin, click here to see where the spec lands in terms of fun when compared to the other melee DPS in 10.2. It's a subjective approach because it's what we consider fun, but regardless, well worth a watch.